So the renewal, as you can see, is end of March. So they really would like a decision before then, so they know how much we're going to take, because they have to parcel this out to a whole bunch of other people and whatever. So that's what we're looking for. You've seen that already. So let's go on to the next slide. Let's see if it stays in some weird whatever. Okay, moving right along there. And that, I think, was their proposed their proposal on how that was going to escalate as you go forward on that. If I can make that out. Yeah, that's just more of their information on that. So we roll ahead on that one too. Okay, this was kind of an interesting slide that they provided, because you see the graph when it goes back uh, almost to the when we became a customer, and then you can see where we're at right now, and you can see how it's projected going forward. So it's a little bit of a steep, it's not a real steep slope going up, but it will increase over time, and they want you to know that. So when we're talking prices on that, there's a projected price increase every year as you go forward, and they're just showing the first 5 years of that. Again, it's going to be another 25-year contract. So, all right, let's forge ahead here. So this was their hedging strategy, shall we say. They have partnered with a company called StoneX, and they hedge gas is what they do. So this is how they're going to do this going forward. And the reason they would do this is because, remember, back in 21, and the big storm in February, everybody got frozen out, all the gas got frozen up, and it was skyrocketing on the market and all that, if we remember all that really well. So everybody got hit with that a little bit. We got a little bit of it, mainly other people really got hit with it. We ran our diesel engines, what we did, but we had a little. So they're hedging ahead. So nothing's foolproof. It's just like any other hedge that you do. You're buying ahead and hoping that you're doing the right thing. You'll find out when you get there 5 years from now, or 3 years from now, or whatever that is. So that's what we're going to do, is kind of mitigate some of the risks that would be coming with GRDA. Because right now they do have a PCA that's built into that, which means if they get hit with increased costs, they pass it along, just like we do. So they're no different than that. So that's StoneX. I don't know really much about that company. I've never dealt with them before, but they got a cool name, though, you got to admit. StoneX. It's like a wrestler. I don't know who came up with that. But anyway, that's who they are out there. So yeah, let's go ahead. So you can see what their mix is, and like I said, you've seen this. Neil presented this. They're basically phasing out their coal, and they're going to hydro and natural gas mainly as their big part of the thing. That's why they need a PCA, and that's why they need to hedge, because their exposure to natural gas is pretty steep at this point. So anyway, all right, let's keep on rolling here. So KMEA then, of course, had their recommendation here, because they're looking at our mixture that we've got, and so they were really recommending that 1.5 to 2 megawatts of GRDA. If you want to go ahead there, I think we got some more. It might be the next, yeah, be the next slide that comes up there. There we go. And you can see that they have a 1.5 megawatts. You can see what the price is going to be going forward. They're projecting that out. It's that yellow down there, a little hard to see, but it's basically going from 5.5. It'll be at 6 cents or projecting going forward. So a steady increase, whether you do 2 megawatts or 1.5. You're still going to see an increase. At least that's what they're projecting going forward on either one of those. So right now, like I said, we got 3 as our base load power. That's our 24 hour round the clock base load power. And the recommendation was to go at least 1.5, if not 2, because they didn't want to see us have more than a third of our energy in the market, so to speak. So that's what came together. They're obviously being conservative on that, as you would expect them to be, and that's their recommendation. So anyway, does that make sense? So the choice on GRDA is 3, 2, 1.5, 1, possibly 0. You can choose any one of those, which is the best for us, is what it comes down to. So The choice then will determine really how we go forward with community solar. Because remember, we did pick up 1 megawatt of the Pratt, we call it the Pratt project. It's got a different name now down there near Pratt. And we took 1 megawatt of that. Of course, we have wind power, hydropower, and other such mixes out there. So that's out there for us. But GRDA has historically been our baseload power. So the next step is decide how much of this and then how much community solar if we're going to go with that. So they both, of course, are related to each other. So if you understand that. So we're not looking for any decision tonight. Of course, we can't. It's a work session. But just wanted to present this information kind of all at once. It's been different work sessions have been kind of leading up to this, and you've seen kind of one piece at a time, and then, you know, expected to make a decision by just looking at one. So I'm going to try to string all this together because after we're done with GRDA, I'm going to show you the pluses and minuses of community solar and different ways you can approach that and what the good, the bad, the ugly for community solar is versus GRDA. But I think we should pause right here. Like you've seen this before. When Neil Danny was here, he presented most of this. Like I said, his recommendation is that either 1.5 or 2 for the baseload power. So anybody have any questions, any strong feelings, any declarations?
Well, on the internal generation portion, you're showing over 10%. Is that what we actually ran in the prior year, or is that what the anticipated run rate would be to generate?
I'm not sure. But did you get that letter, Jeff? I'm not sure what the.
We did not run anywhere near 10%.
Yeah, I mean that would have been extraordinary if we ran 10%, even in 21.
So then, what does that indicate on there? The 10% internal generation. Is that
Is that
It's 0.2%.
Yeah.
There's a decimal.
There's a decimal there. Yeah.
I was looking at the bar graph. Bar graph shows over 10%.
Does it?
Yeah, the purple's up to 60%, and the bar graph for the blue.
Oh, it's a different color blue.
Yep.
No.
It's light blue.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're looking at unfortunately.
That makes more
People
sense.
make those
They're in order on
graphs.
the graph.
The
Yeah.
colors are too close.
Okay.
Yeah.
About that.
I was gonna say,
I was like,
holy
cow, we're running a lot.
Yeah, Jeff even ran a lot more than I thought he
10% of
was,
the time.
but yeah, I think we would have known that if we would have heard him out there doing that probably. So
That makes sense.
right, yeah. So you're really less than a 1/10 of percent, which would be normal for a city like us that has generation.
Okay.
So, but that's where we're at as far as GRDA, and we are getting down to decision time on that. So
Glenn, remind us, what are we talking for an annual requirement? 36 megawatts, or what are we talking? So 3 megawatts is what percentage of our annual estimated need?
well, it's around the clock. So yeah, how many kilowatts or megawatts per year do we use?
There's like 36
It's like 36 million kilowatts.
It's roughly 50% at 2, right? Or I mean, a third at 2, because don't we usually generate on average 6 megawatts? Isn't that
Well,
what?
the 6 megawatts would be the total of what we can generate internally, but we can go up higher than that because we have the downtown plant as well.
No, I'm saying, sorry, what our community usually uses.
Oh,
Per
on
day.
a normal day, I think Scott's asking for the entire year, right?
Yeah, I'm looking for
Yeah.
annual, because these are annual contracts.
Right,
And so we've got to buy 3 megawatts
round the clock. And what does that
per
turn
day.
out to?
per day.
Per day, yeah.
Right. So what percentage of that is of our annual requirement?
Doing the 3 megawatts right now, I think it's close to what a third of our
Or
total load.
So you're saying our average per day is 9 megawatts usage?
Well, I mean, you got to go back. He's asking for the entire year.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
yeah, no, the per day.
The average would be the same.
I mean, the average per day is fine. We can
Yeah.
do the math on.
Yeah.
Is it 6 megawatts on average across the year?
No, I don't believe it's that high.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be.
But so I guess that's my point. So if it's not even 6, 3 megawatts would be, if it was 6, 3 megawatts would be 50%.
Right.
So if it's 5, then it,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Glenn was saying it's probably a third, so it's, on an annual basis, well, that'd be like 9.
that's what
Help me.
that's what I'm getting.
Yeah.
To. That's what I'm trying to.
It's less than that.
Yeah, it's more than a third at 3
A little more than a
megawatts.
third, right?
When you say on an annual, so if daily is 3 megawatts, how does the annual get up to,
If it's an average daily, it's 365 days.
right?
That's why I'm just trying to break it down to days because I think that's easier to
Yeah.
comprehend. So if our average is 6 megawatts per day throughout the year, then
For
this
total
would be
usage.
50%
Ah,
total
got it.
usage.
Got it.
And
Okay.
this would be 50% of our total usage on average per day.
Yeah, that greatly depends on the day, though, since,
But I'm saying an average.
yeah.
But the amount of contracts that we have currently with that, GRDA doesn't make up 50% of our
Oh,
total
we had a pie
contracts.
chart. Did you already show that? or-
Yeah, go back to the pie chart.
Well,
Yeah, we do in there.
Aye.
And they'll actually be, I think, if you go to the next one, I think we'll actually show, I think, what you're getting at.
Yeah, I think
There's a couple of pie charts.
a different file.
No,
There was
no,
a pie chart
next-
that was
the next
really
one.
helpful.
Yeah, the next.
Oh, it's in the
Isn't
KME.
isn't there another one after, isn't there a,
It's in the KMEA presentation.
First one that we
Yeah.
there we
it
go.
is.
Yeah, there we go. If you can,
So
Find
it's
that out.
30%.
okay, yeah, what he's showing there, see, that's, and there's another one that's after that. So it's if you take,
Ah.
see, that's if you take 1.5.
yeah.
Oh, where's the open market? Okay. So
Yeah,
the
what
open
he's showing is
market,
that
that's
the
why.
brown would be the open market.
Right.
And if you go to the next
Which is the
slide,
contract. Right.
one down there, yeah, you can see how that increases. So that's your total mix.
But to your point of GRDA at 1.5 is 30%, then it would be 60% at the current 3.
50
Yeah, well, he's taking, yeah.
10% up. Oh, no,
It's
you're right.
30%.
You're right. You're
It'd
right.
be-
You're right.
It'd be 60.
Yep.
GRDA, and under that scenario, the 2 megawatts take 40%.
Yeah, and that's just, but it was 30% on 1.5.
Yeah, I was
So
looking at
every
the one
half
before that.
megawatt increases it by 10%.
Right, so if you're at 3 megawatts, it's roughly
60.
60% of your entire load. This would go down to 40%, and the one before that shows if you did 1.5, then it dips down to
30.
30, yeah.
I hate to jump ahead in your presentation, Glenn, but I do have an important question that is relevant to this.
Okay.
Let's jump ahead to the. Let's say we qualify for the low income, get the 60% kickbacks on the total solar investment. Let's say we go up to whatever megawatt.
Tax credits.
Tax credits, right? Right. Sorry. Yes. The intrigue of GRDA is that it's base load, right? They said it's always on. You can always,
Right.
it's not solar where it only blows at night, sun that only shines during the day, right? So
24/7.
24/7.
Yep.
So the intrigue of solar, obviously the sun only shines during the day, but the intrigue of solar is the battery technology that's improving and the tax credits that we can get for that. As far as what you know, since we're only talking about GRDA in the context of base load, how much battery base load can you have when you're charging your batteries at night for the day? Like, do you have it broken down into megawatts as far as how much each one costs? And we're going to talk about
You'll
that.
see that later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that is important.
What we'll
because,
show is not just solar, but solar and now storage.
Okay.
Because of what you're just talking
Right.
about. The technology's a lot better than it was, and the cost is fairly reasonable at this point.
Okay.
So it's really going to be how much risk you want in that brown section up there.
Right.
That's the SPP mark. That's the day ahead market.
Okay.
And so if you want more GRDA, you get you're less open market. But it does lock you into GRDA, and you'll see that escalation as you go up. Trying to predict the market going forward as a day ahead market, it's a lot harder to do, but you have to, everybody's forecasting that, but it really depends on the price of natural gas. So, but my point with GRDA though is that they do have a hedge in there buying natural gas, but they also have a PCA.
Right.
So if they get hit with another big storm, whatever that is, winter, summer, whatever, and gas prices go crazy, you still have that risk. I mean, not as much as we had before because they're going to hedge that, but there's still a volatility in there, and you're still exposed to the gas market. So unless you got your own gas supply, you're in that market.
Got it.
So that's the trade-off. You want what you want,
Glenn, I mean, is it-
more or less.
Fair to say, really, what we're needing to decide on there's 4 pieces of this pie chart, right? The GRDA, and I assume the community solar is what we already have, the 1 megawatt,
It's the 1 megawatt,
and
yes.
then the large scale solar is proposed Oh, that's the Pratt.
Large scale, so yeah, Pratt.
Oh, we don't have to decide on that. So
Nope, already did it.
RDA, and then whether we add our own solar, and then what does that leave for the SPP market, right? Those three things.
That's it. That's correct.
Those two additions will dictate how small that pie chart is on the day ahead market.
Right. Or the pie chart stays the same if you're able to get your same base load with solar as you can with GRDA. Let's say let's say you can get to 40%.
Well, the pie chart would look different because we'd have that down in the new solar. That would be
Right.
It would just be classified as base load.
But the maroon wouldn't change possibly.
What?
The maroon wouldn't change possibly of the what you buy from the open market.
Right. You're right. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
That it? All right. I think we're getting there. All right. No, you got it down. It's a trade-off how much you want of each. What we've done for 20 years now, or close to 20 years, is get the 3 megawatts from GRDA. That's there. You pay that. If it goes up a little, you pay that wholesale cost, and that's what you do. But now, with the solar and the battery technology, there's a different way to go. So let's bring ahead to the next one, which I think is a PowerPoint presentation here. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, yes, here's solar 2, and obviously, I'm mixing all these these things together actually. So these are sort of what community solar, but you get the good part, you get community involvement in it, which we've already done with our 1 megawatt. People seem to receive that very well. We engaged with Baker University and both their business school and their biology students were both involved when we did that 5-6 years ago now. It seems like that was longer, but and of course it's diversification, and we own it. It's behind our meter. There's all kinds of good things about having your own community solar project. It's here. We don't have to worry about transmission. You don't have to worry about being cut, and on and on. So those are the good things. Okay, let's move on here. So we looked at different sites. Remember when we originally started out, this thing's old enough. They remember the school project. Remember we started out actually out there at the school, and then school property, and then we've talked about the lake property, which I think that's shown, and then we've talked about a piece of property south of town, and then we've also talked about this one over here, which would be west of our current power plant. So those would be you're looking at anywhere from 2.75 to a little under 2.5 there to up to 3. That's kind of the range you're looking at, depending on where you want to place it. And we haven't really decided where we're gonna do it yet. So let's talk about the one that's just west of the power plant. That's the one that's been kind of brought up recently. The downsides to that is there's a lot of trees there. And there's also a drainage that goes through there. There's also a sewer line that goes through there, a huge collector sewer line that goes to our plant that's nearby. So there's a big slope there. One of the fears is if you took out a lot of vegetation, then what's going to hold the ground? So you'd have a lot of challenges. The configuration for the solar is not ideal, because this is a tilt system, so you'd have to have more motors in there. So there's a lot of challenges to that project. The good thing about it from our standpoint is we own it, and that's about it. I have no idea how much it would cost to make that ready by taking out all those trees. That'd be a lot of money, and it just would not be an ideal place for solar. Too close to the the floodplain in there, and there's just a lot of challenges to that. So I don't know if you're still thinking about that or not, but like the only upside is it's our property, we control it, and that's about it. Otherwise, there's a lot of challenges to that piece of property.
One of those purchase prices they're showing, is that fully installed, ready to turn up?
No, not in this. These are old. This is
Okay,
this coming from an old Evergy slide one back when we started talking to them. So
Back when we did the 1 megawatt.
yeah, that's back. Yeah, and they were just projecting off of that. So I'm just showing you the sites here, and like I said, the one out there at the city lake has an advantage, again, that we own it. We wouldn't have to take down a lot of vegetation, and there's a big open space out there. And we have transmission that have to be upgraded, but that would be also eligible for tax credits on that. So that makes that fairly attractive. And the site that we're looking, south of the city, south of the power plant there is, would fit, but it would be costly. And of course, we were dealing with the school back in the day on their site, which would be a very good site for about 2.5 to 3 megawatts power. But they've decided to take that off the board, so that's not a possibility. So we really are down to 3 sites. The one west of the power plant there, like I said, would be really challenging. So we're really, in my mind, it brings it down to 2 sites. So I don't know if anybody's got any strong opinions or whatever on that either, unless you know about another place we could put it.
I mean, I'm waiting for the number side, I'll be honest, to start seeing the numbers on this with the cost of the land acquisition. I mean, I have opinion on the lake. We've heard from the community they want to keep that green space.
Yep.
I'd like to explore that before we start taking it up with solar. I mean, I think everybody kind of knows my opinion is next to the power plant because that makes the most sense. But to me, I know it's more challenging, but that's my opinion. Unless we get prices from land acquisition, but it all comes down to how much the power is going to cost. To me, I guess.
Okay, anybody else?
I think it's a big advantage to have our own property and put it on there instead of having to purchase property.
I agree.
We
I agree, but I think that, the citizens have made a really strong case for the lake, and I don't think that that's going to be an ideal location. I'd like to consider that a last resort.
Yes, I would not be in favor of the lake either.
we did confirm that the tax credits do not apply to land acquisition.
They do not. Right. They apply to transmission, but they don't. They don't apply to, otherwise people would be buying land out there with the tax credits, and that wasn't the intent of the tax credits.
You and I briefly spoke about this, but on the police station and on the utility building, it's engineered for solar. Have we figured out how much those 2 buildings could hold? And then
No, but I can find, it won't be a huge amount, but yeah, they were built to have solar on top. So, yeah. So,
What was the other building? The police station and what?
police station and public works.
utility,
Yeah, the public works,
Public Works.
nearby. Yeah, they were both engineered that way.
which has a lot of roof space, I think that.
They do.
I mean, those 2 buildings should be able to get
Yeah.
quite a bit into there. Okay.
Okay.
Well, sounds like we're down to a couple of options, and to your point, until we really get a pretty realistic estimate of what it would cost for both of those spots, it'd be hard to make a decision.
I agree.
I don't know how we'd go out and, would we get B&G or somebody to go in and actually do a cost estimate on the property west of the, or Evergy, or somebody that would do that west of the Public Works?
Yeah, the power plant down there. You can see right next to it.
I mean, is that, how do we get something that we have confidence in as far as cost of, really a cost of getting it to turn up?
Yeah, we could get somebody to do that.
I don't know how
Whether it's them or one of our power company. I mean,
Okay.
that's the business that they're in, so
Is-
they would know that and be able to give us good.
We need that, right?
Yeah, I think we need that information.
Then it's a matter of bouncing that against land acquisition cost of something we'd have to buy.
Yeah.
We're not going to use any other city-owned property. And then you'll have trade-offs for both, right? Cost will be one of them, and there'll be some other issues, but then we can start debating the merits of the sites.
Yep. Okay. All right, pushing right along there. What do I got next? Now, that's just kind of the plus that we've kind of already talked about those disadvantages. Again, that's a little bit outdated. So, all right, here we go. This would, this would look like the 3 megawatt solar tracking for replacement of GRDA. So instead of 3 megawatts GRDA, you'd have 3 megawatts of solar.
Is this assuming though that solar is given all? I mean, is this assuming that you can store all the solar that you're producing?
No, I don't even think they I don't think when they made this pie chart, they were considering that at that
Okay.
time.
Well, because it's showing 50% though, and
Right,
solar wouldn't
right.
be at 50%
Yeah.
of 3 megawatts.
Let's see what we got in the next one here. Okay, well, that's the end of that.
Yeah, I think it was.
Aha, okay, all right. Here's my famous spreadsheet.
Megawatts, 60%.
Yeah, but that's on demand all the time.
I know, a different kind of power, but
It's different, yeah.
from a megawatt perspective, with you take the on-demand piece out, that
Okay.
was accurate.
So what we're showing here, if you remember this, we compared the Pratt solar project with our own internal community solar. And so what I did, and I think most of you have probably seen this, the yellow portions in here you can change. So I dropped in 60 acres, and you can see what that land cost would be at a projected 15,000, which I think is standard for here. So that's $900,000. So what you do is go to the right. There you go. Keep on going. Okay. And what you can see here, I don't know if we can get it. Yeah, keep going with just the boxes there. Okay, on that side. Yeah. Keep going a little bit. All right. You're not going to be able to see that. Yeah, right there. Right there. All right. So you can see with a projected capacity cost there of, I think, $5 or no, $3 and the REC's at 3. You can see what the 40% ITC is, which is the tax credit. To that right there, you can see what the cost would be per year, per kilowatt, or, well, in this case, megawatts.
Megawatt.
And then the 30%, so if we didn't get the 40% because you don't have enough domestic content. And then you can see it still says Pratt PPA, but you can actually put in there right now 5.5 for the GRDA. You can see the comparison. So even with the 30%, I didn't even have a column here for the 60%. You're still paying that less per year on a 3 megawatts, so even with the land cost in there.
So just for the people at home and to connect, and correct me if I'm wrong, Glenn. So we're looking at down towards the bottom, which is the more expensive years, right? 4.
It does because, yeah, the maintenance is projected to increase slightly year by year.
So with the GRDA, we were looking at 5.5 cents roughly.
5, then it go to 6, which I just put in the 50 in there because that's what Pratt was.
And on this one, we're at 4.6 to 5 or 5.4 cents.
Right. So you're under it even with the land acquisition. Now, if you go back to where the land acquisition was and just say, okay, put in 0, because we're not buying any acres. That's changeable in there. You might have to go up to where the formula part is. Oh yeah, you just didn't view there, aren't you? Okay. This read mode.
I guess my point was why she's working on that is our high end, we're looking at 5.8 cents, where the Pratt or where the GRDA is going to be going up over 6 within
Correct.
the first 10 years.
Yeah. This is assuming, okay, there you go. Yeah, the live spreadsheet. Now let's go over to the right once again.
Oh, you got to put in the 0 first to go under.
Did you get it?
Oh,
Did you change
oh
that?
yeah.
I think so.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. So that drops it down even more.
So what's that negative at the bottom? Year 26.
Yeah, negative really doesn't really happen.
I was gonna say, I don't.
I mean, because it's just doing the calculation. You'll go down to 0 because you won't have any. That's at the 20 years, so your bond issue is paid off. So now you just have O&M for the life of it. That's what you're doing at that point. So that looks funny. That nobody's going to pay you back, so you don't get any cash back or something.
Do batteries, do they count toward capacity 100%?
No, this is certain percentages. I don't think it's 100%.
Is the battery storage included in this number or no?
No, this is not. I'll show you what that looks like going forward. This is just the 3 megawatt solar. This is what you'd pay for this versus what you'd pay for really whether it's Pratt or the GRDA or any number you want to compare it with on the right side. So, but either way you do it, land acquisition or not, 3 megawatts, 2.5, or whatever, it really comes out to be below that cost. And what you're doing is you're fixing your cost, basically. The only thing that's variable here would be the O&M cost. So if you get high O&M, it's going to drive that cost up, but usually that's temporary. Most of these are built to last at least 30 years. The rule of thumb in the past was solar panels would degrade 1% per year over time. They don't really do that anymore. It's not even half of, I mean, you're getting pretty much now what you got out of the panels, 5 years ago or whatever. That technology has really been good, and it's probably going to get better as you go forward.
But we are opening ourselves up. If we didn't do any GRDA and did just solar, we're opening ourselves up to the open market to where if it goes crazy.
Okay, well, that is a great question, because that's going to be the next thing we deal with is what does that actually mean? So the question is going to be, do you want to be in the market or not? If you said, no, I don't want to be in the market at all, you would probably go for 3 megawatts of or at least 2 megawatts of GRDA and just say, I don't want to be exposed to that at all. The other extreme is to say, I don't want any more GRDA at all. We're going to take our chances in the market, but what does that look like? What does that look like? The good thing about GRDA, it's not a fixed price, but it's stable. It's going to go up over time, but it's fairly predictable. But it's a 25-year contract, and you're buying that round the clock, all year, whether you want it or not, or need it or not, put it that way. So that is the downside of it, which sounds like an upside, but if the prices in the market are rock bottom overnight, you're not going to be able to take advantage of that because you're locked in at your 2.5 or your 1.5 or 2 megawatts. You have to pay for that. So it doesn't make sense to be out there in the market most of the time. It wouldn't. So that's your trade-off there. So what happens normally is that the high prices that you're going to see come during the daytime. The low prices you're going to see come during the nighttime. So how do you take advantage of that? Well, you'll see it as we go forward in here. So it's not a big mystery or surprise, but you'll see how you take advantage of that as you go forward. So the wind blows typically harder overnight. So a lot of times not a lot of times, there are times when it goes rock bottom and they will actually pay you to take the wind. That doesn't happen a lot. But if they have high wind usage and everybody has a low load, then yeah, they have congestion. They got to do something with the power. So, that's when you want to be in the market. Doesn't happen a lot. It doesn't. But that's your exposure. That's the risk of going to the market. But there's also a reward of getting that low, cheap power overnight when you can take advantage of it. And there's really only one way for us to do that, and that is the storage. Without that, it doesn't matter how cheap energy is overnight. So that's it. But what I want to show you with this spreadsheet, which, like I said, most of you have seen that before, is that land acquisition or no. And like I said, you can punch in any assumption you want as far as RECs and land cost and whatever in the yellow there. Interest rates, I put at 4%. That's a little conservative. What we're seeing right now in the markets, probably around 3.7, 3.8 for general obligation bonds. So I just put in 4 to be a little conservative on that, which is probably where the market's going to be. Who knows? Until you issue the bonds, you don't really know. Just depends on the market's treating you that day. So there's a lot of assumptions. You can put in anything you want in there. And then put it on a 20-year bond. You can do 25, 30. That's kind of getting out there. Most cities don't like to do more than 20, but you can put anything in there that you want. And if the market will respond to that and buy your bonds, then there you go. But you're incurring a little more interest when you do that. But the plus and minuses to both. So anyway, confused the heck out of you. I mean, this is kind of a simple sort of thing right here. When you get down to it, you're comparing your 40% ITCs, 30% with GRDA or Pratt or any other project at the end of the whole thing. You can see all the numbers in there and what it all adds up to, and at the end you can get into fancy things like levelized cost, and people who work in the industry love to throw those terms around and whatever, but that's just kind of the total price at the end of the day, what it's going to be worth. So anyway, just to show you, if you had to buy land, you know, you're still competitive with the GRDA. So if the price is slightly less or close to GRDA, the question then is exposure to the market. That's what you're looking for. So, all right, let's go on to the next one after that, which I think might be my final one. Get past that. There we are. Okay, it's a little hard to read this one. I don't know if you can blow that up a little bit. Yep, not that much. Okay, this is comparing solar with storage versus the market. So what you see going from the left, if I can read this, is how much you'd be producing year by year, and what that would put out, projected to put out, what that would cost. Whoa. And then the highlighted column there is the energy savings, just from the solar and the battery itself. So over 20 years, the projected savings there versus the market would be over $11 million. So what this would be, I think they project a couple more megawatts, or 3 megawatts, plus 4.2 on the batteries. And these batteries would not be lithium ion batteries, it'd be graphene batteries, which are kind of a sodium type of battery. They're relatively new, but they're very, very solid, very efficient. They do not really degrade over time. They've been tested at, you know, thousands and thousands of cycles. So 20 years from now, you'll be getting really the same amount of energy out of that battery. What we're doing here is saying that during the nighttime, what you do is you store your batteries, not during the daytime. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, because what you think you're doing is you got your solar going, that's going to feed your batteries. You can do that, but you're probably doing that during the peak of the day. You want to use that in your system, but at night, you pull off the system when it's rock bottom prices. So then you got the 4 megawatts that you can use for 1 hour, or 4 hours you can use 1 megawatt. That's the way that works. That's why it's 4 megawatt hours. So, but you don't have 4 megawatts for 4 hours. That's not the way that works. So that's the way then you're hedging, basically. Then they're showing the capacity on there that you were talking about, solar capacity, total capacity, then the RECs you get off of that. So if you add up all of that, that's over $14 million. So I'm not going to say you're beating the market, but it's a way to take advantage of the market when it's low. And in that case, you know, GRDA is still a good product, but see, it locks you in, so you're not going to be really buying much overnight. If you're locked into 3 megawatts of GRDA, it wouldn't really make a lot of sense to do that.
How long do the batteries last for?
Right now, they're rated for about 30 years.
30?
For the batteries. And like I said, they'll be producing the same power, 20 years from now they are today. So they don't degrade over. I mean, lithium has some pluses, but also has a lot of minuses. If you have a fire with the lithium, it spreads very quickly, and basically you let it burn it out. The graphene aren't that way. And so what these are a couple of trailers that show up, and they have them in the self-contained trailers, and they just put them down, you plug them into your system, and that's it. So it works like another engine out there. But you have to have access to power to store them, obviously. So that's it. So those would be the proposals. So knowing that, then you got to decide how much GRDA you want, if you want to go this route with this product, which will be solar and storage. But doing this, you have to actively manage your system too. This is not base load power. You buy it, it's a PPA, and they manage the system for you. We have to be actively managing this.
So in my mind, the question is, how much risk do we want to take on the open market? If you start there,
That's correct.
come to a consensus there, then what's left is, because the open market and GRDA are base power, right?
Yes.
So you solve the base power, you decide how much you think you need, and then you decide how much of that do you want to get in the open market versus GRDA. And then what's left would be the solar amount, additional solar. But I think that first question is what are we currently running open market percentage-wise? Is it 10% we get from the open market?
One of those pie charts showed us that. I can't remember
it was
exactly
30.
what it was. It was more than that. Yeah, it was more than 10%.
Yeah, it was the maroon section that was 30%.
Yeah, if you look back at one of their KME 8 slides there, but he was showing you I think the
And that was with 1.5.
1.5 and
That's not with 3 megawatts.
yeah. Well, yeah,
So with 3 megawatts, that comes
you would
right
have
out of
that. Yeah.
right out of the open market. So I think that's the question, and obviously we'd want to consult with our electric department on, you know, what kind of burden that puts on our staff from having to manage more open market on a daily basis. And then I think if we come up with a percentage that we're comfortable with, then I think the other two questions come easier.
God, AI hasn't taken that over yet.
No, people are still involved in making the decisions.
I mean,
unfortunately.
is that a
I mean, the
rational way to look
computer
at
part
this?
of it.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from Jeff and his perspective too on all this.
I have a question about the batteries. I don't know anything about them.
Okay.
So where will you store those?
They would be close to they'd be close to the solar site, and there's reasons for that. So
So you'd have to build a building to put them in?
no, they come in containers and they're self-contained. Yeah, it's just like a big shipping container that you see, and they're actually about half full of the batteries, so you don't cram them all in there. You don't have a big container with just. So it's like a big container. I don't have a picture of it. I should. And then about half of that's containing the batteries. So
And does each battery have a warranty?
yes. Yep.
How long?
I think these have a warranty of 20 years on them.
And then I know it would be down the road, but when we would have to replace them in 30 years, what would be the cost?
No idea.
I know, but it'd
Yeah,
probably
I
be
have
pretty
no
expensive,
No
wouldn't it?
idea. You know, that'd be really hard to project that. Yeah.
Well, but that's
Because-
probably something we need to do a little bit because, I mean, then we'd,
Well, the technology, it's changed in the past couple of years more than really I ever thought it would. So what would be available 20, 30 years from now? I couldn't begin to guess. And at what price?
I know, it'd just be hard to go on assumptions though.
Well, that would be a complete shot in the dark. I mean, that would be,
So Glenn, can you just simplify this a little bit? Yes, I want to make sure. Can you explain what the cost per kilowatt would be or megawatt would be with the battery? Start out, highest cost.
yeah, that's not being shown. It's just showing the savings on this.
Correct.
That savings is over 20 years.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's over a 20-year period. I'm trying to remember what it would be. Well, it's back with the chart that you, or the spreadsheet that showed, originally just had solar with capacity and RECs and all that. That's just with that. This then adds the batteries and then the avoided costs that you have.
Yeah, we almost need to see that together to see what our megawatt cost would be with the battery costs.
Yeah, I suppose there's some way to do that. Somebody a little more advanced than me is going to have to do that.
You'd have to know the average cost of what electricity is on the open market at night, and then
Right,
apply
well,
that because it's
yeah.
going to be variable, right?
This one, yeah, this one's a forecast ahead. That's what you're showing. and you're showing how to avoid the forecast going forward. So all that's going to be projected, and I suppose there's a way to do that.
guess what's
We'll show you
What's the savings based off of?
what you're avoiding on the market.
On an open market at
Yes.
night power, what you're purchasing?
Well, any market, just forecasting the market going forward.
But based on our bond payment,
No, what would you have to buy in the open market?
I guess what I'm
Versus
getting at, if our bond payments, I'm just throwing out numbers, $200,000 for these batteries per year for the next 20 years,
Right.
then your savings aren't going to be 600,000, right? Because you're going to have to deduct that 200,000 cost.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
And then if this
Doesn't take any.
solar project went down, if it broke, then we would just have to buy it all off the open market until it was fixed,
Yeah.
which could be risky. I mean,
there are towns that only buy off the open market.
Correct. Yeah.
So, I mean, I know it kind of seems scary because we're not used to it being as 100% of the pie, but I mean, there are towns that operate there.
Yeah, there are towns that never took GRDA 20 years ago or any base load, and they do day ahead market all the time. That's what they do.
Any other questions for Glenn right now? Is that your,
Think of more. Yeah.
all right.
More.
All right, Jeff, do you want to come up and just take your round?
Try to explain it to these guys again.
So,
There was a lot of questions, so
yeah, well, I guess I want you to start out just telling me your honest, open opinion of all this. I mean, as a guy that operates in this world day in and day out, what's your opinion?
I think the most important part about tonight is deciding the GRDA. I think we all can know that that's the timeline that we're facing. One comment I have to make is solar is not a replacement for GRDA. The replacement for GRDA would be day-ahead market. So even with batteries, let's say you had a 4 megawatt hour battery, that only gives you 4 megawatt hours for a 24-hour period that you can draw from. If we take all of our GRDA away, like I looked when I sat down, we're at 5.25 megawatts right now. That's what our load is. So how would we do that overnight if we did not have any GRDA? So we have 2 wind projects. They're 1 megawatt each. So let's say they're both maxed out. They're both doing 2 megawatts. We still have over 3 megawatts that we have to have per hour, megawatt hours, for every hour to cover that. A 4 megawatt hour battery is not going to, it's going to be 1 hour and 1 and a partial hours. So the battery storage is not the answer to GRDA. So what would happen if we did that is what we needed on top of the battery storage would be market power. So and that, as long as you understand that and you're okay with taking those risks, you know, then that's where you'd be. Did I make it?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted your honest opinion on everything. I mean, so
It would be really hard to have enough batteries to cover up our base load. Now obviously tonight's a little higher than normal because of the cold out there. We have some heating load, but a typical overnight in the shoulder months is 2.5 to 3 megawatts per hour. So, I mean, even then we wouldn't be able to make it through the night on 4 hours of battery. So, to me, we need to have the GRDA project of some, I say a megawatt and a half minimum. That's my thoughts on it. And the more you want to try to use the market, you know, for cheaper prices, the less of that you're going to want to take. But it is exposing yourself. And we don't know what the market's going to be in the future. We can guess, but
Do you remember how much we've bought from the day-ahead market?
I think a typical is 12%, 13% out of the market right now with our existing 3 megawatts of GRDA. One good thing about the GRDA is during the shoulder months, we can only buy 75% of what we're spoken for. That we're given that option. So in the shoulder months when we don't need as much, we can cut that back to 75% of our contract. Another advantage to the GRDA is it's pretty much 100% capacity. Solar and batteries is 30 to 40. The GRDA, whatever we buy from that, we're entitled to that amount of capacity. Just some things to think about.
So if you look at this chart, this is it says 2027. Not sure why. But at the 1.5 megawatt GRDA, I mean, they're showing, and the 1 megawatt large scale solar, 1 megawatt community solar. So 1 megawatt Pratt, 1 megawatt community solar. It shows us at 33% in the SPP market. So we'd jump from more than double our exposure to the market.
Yes. Now that's not counting any additional community solar.
Well,
That's going to pull back some of it, but it's going to be peak hours, not
right.
around the
So
clock.
I think that the question, how much base power do you think we need to have? You know, I mean, that's the question, right? Because solar can't be considered a base power source, right? So is 1.5 from GRDA enough? Or is it 1.5 plus our current 15% day ahead market? So where do you think we need to be between GRDA and day ahead market percentages to get what we need for base power?
I think for stability, you ought to be looking at 2. If you're wanting to play the market a little bit, then maybe 1.5 or maybe 1 3/4.
Oh, but at 2 would still be it'd still be buying off the day ahead market for base power, right?
The 2% GRDA would leave
For 2 megawatts.
the next. What does that leave for? Can you scroll down a little bit, please? That would leave market at about 12%. So they're forecasted in 25, 13.75% in the market if we were to go to 2 megawatts. So that would get us closer to where we are now.
Right.
Again, if you throw some more solar in there, that would bring off some more megawatt hours every day. So your market percentage would tick down again.
But you would also be storing batteries with market power at night, so you would have some catch up on the, because we're
Yeah,
right.
if we were to go batteries, yeah. I'm sorry, I was misreading that. They're showing 26, looks like going from 3 to 2. So that turns our
Right, that's where we
integrated
got to the 30.
marketplace into 26%.
Yeah.
And what was it? Can you go up to the 1.5? So on 26, they put us at over 30% in the market with 1.5. So to me, I'm looking at 2 being a minimum GRDA for stability. I don't know, I'm assuming that in the earlier years, you could probably do better pricing if you did more in the marketplace, but as the years go out, I don't know whether that's going to remain true or not. It may flip-flop and go the other way. So the stability is having your GRDA pretty much, I mean, it's not a given cost, but it's past has shown that it's pretty stable.
But that also goes up each year now with this new.
Right.
And you have that variable in there of their
The PCA.
yes.
Short-term gas markets are trending reasonable. So short-term, they're not suspecting gas to be too high. I mean, there's going to be some peaks during cold weather situations, but as far as, an average cost for the year, they're not projecting natural gas to increase too much in the next 5 years. Some of that has to do with imports too. So
I want to mention something that I didn't have clarification on at the last council meeting. We talked about this, that in the budget committee, I did get clarification on and understand a little bit better. So in my mind, whatever we took from GRDA would have been a threat to how much solar we could have, because I didn't understand that the power that you get from GRDA that's contracted, you can sell back to the open market.
Yeah, any power in excess of what you need can be sold back,
Right.
depending on,
Right.
it doesn't depend on where it comes from.
So just to talk about that just a little bit more, bring a little bit more clarification, 1.5 megawatt of GRDA versus 2, it doesn't really impact how much solar, how big of a solar project you can go for, because whatever you're drawing in from the sun, you can sell back your contract.
Right, and normally, on most times of the year, when your solar is at peak, your load is also at peak, so you're gonna be consuming most of that
Right.
in addition.
Right. So yeah, that's something that I got.
Well, I think those numbers are related, though. I mean, how much? I mean, how much solar do you need to build to support? Right, it's gonna change the economics
Yeah.
up to the point where it's as much as you need, and then you keep building beyond that. It's not going to
Doesn't make sense at some point.
So I do think they're interrelated,
Right.
because the more GRDA you have, the less solar you're probably going to need to support your base requirement, even in the hot, sunny days.
So my confusion came. I saw it as waste in my head, that you just lost it.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the part that I just wanted to share. I thought in my mind, if you had X amount of solar, your GRDA was just you use it or lose it contract. But we talked about it in the budget meeting a little further, and it was explained that you can sell it.
Yeah, it's just like in the worst case scenario where we can't generate any power, we can't sell any power, so we don't have any revenue coming in, but we are on the hook for all these contracts,
Right.
and those don't let you not pay them.
Right.
So we talked about, well, are we on the hook? Well, we are on the hook, but we can sell that in the market and hopefully get close to what you are contracted for, and that's how you would pay those contracts while you're not selling the electricity to your customers because all your lines are down, in the worst case scenario. That's where we talked
Yeah.
about that. You can sell your contract power on the open market.
Is the open market typically cheaper in the summer or winter months? Do you?
It just depends. So the market is determined by load and by renewables. Renewables has become a huge part of what the hourly cost is. So when they don't expect the wind to blow, usually pricing is considerably elevated. If there's a lot of wind and a low load, then prices can go negative. So it's kind of a loaded question. It varies way more than it ever used to before we were subject to so much wind power in this area.
Somebody's got the data on what it's been for the past 5 years on a daily basis, I'm sure. That's information we could certainly look at least see what it would have been for the last 5 years. Doesn't guarantee what it's going to be for the next 5, but
Correct.
you'd have an idea how much better or worse it would have been if we had a different mix on what we're going to buy. So to me, I think that information would be helpful too on what the day-ahead market rates were. I don't know if you want to do on average or whatever, but because that's what we're talking about, is taking more risk potentially in that marketplace without having a real understanding of what it's been doing or what it's done in the past, which makes it harder to jump in. I mean, we know what we paid for it if we've been paying 12%. We've been buying 12% of it, so we would at least know what we paid for it on a daily basis. So I don't know how hard it'd be to get that information pulled together, but
Probably come up with
it'd be nice to
what we
know.
paid for it.
I mean, if it's half of the, the GRDA, 5 cents a kilowatt hour, it starts to become more attractive, even though it's not a guarantee. But you could potentially save more by doing less of that 5 cent contract and doing more in the open market that averaged 3 or 4 cents, whatever. I mean, that's in my head how the analysis would go. And then I think to your point, Jay, if the day ahead market goes crazy like it's done in the past for events, our fallback is our own generation, and Jeff's got a good handle on what it cost us, current diesel prices to run that, and as soon as the day ahead market got beyond that, we would just run. It would be more expensive than our contracts. It would be less than the day ahead market. Is that
Yes.
fair assumption? Okay.
How much diesel storage did you say that we have?
Just shy of 40,000 gallons.
And that can buy you how many megawatt hours?
So I just did a analysis since we have all 4 units in play now, all 4 units on diesel at full load, I've got about 48 hours worth of time in there in the fuel tanks.
Wow. How much does our diesel cost on a megawatt to generate?
So generation cost running on diesel obviously depends on diesel price, but at today's prices, we're running in 120 to 130 megawatt. So it's about double what our average cost is.
And all 4 of those are dual fuel. They can go natural gas too.
The 2 older ones are dual fuel. The 2 new ones are diesel only.
But taking the GRDA would be the safest route.
It is, yes, it's the most stable route,
And the less risky for our community.
less risky. That's the way I look at it. Is there a chance of having some cheaper power at times? Yes, I think there's a way of doing that, but it also opens up the times when it's not going.
Is it worth the gamble?
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
Any other questions for Jeff? All right, thanks, Jeff. Anybody else have any statements they want to make during this work session?
After looking at all these numbers, I think what Glenn has said on top of what Jeff said is your answer. You go with 2. Like you need to stay with 2 GRDA just for security, if nothing else. You're gonna pay for it, whether you use it or not. It's kind of like buying car insurance. At my age, I've paid enough insurance premiums to buy 2 Ferraris, but I've been secure having that. If you go with 2, what's that do? What's the percentage on the market? 1.5 puts you at what, 30? 30? Because you can still manage that open market as Glenn presented with your battery storage, trying to maximize when you have to go on the market, when it's cheapest at night, to cut down the percentage you're actually buying on the market. And that helps offset the cost you've paid for the 2, or you're paying for the 2 at GRDA. I think both of those scenarios fit together. But yeah, my experience, I don't think you want to go below 2, and I think Jeff is going to be a lot more comfortable if you're at 2. And I think it's better for the community just to have that safety. But that's my opinion.
Anybody else like to speak during this work session? Seeing none, any other council discussion or questions?
I have a question for Glenn. If we were to go with our own community solar, how long would it take to get that up and running? What would be the timeline?
Start to finish to get it operational, probably 6 to 9 months. Size we want. So yeah, it's usually less than a year. It depends how much we're going to, buy land or not, or we're going to level a forest, or
Mm-hmm.
if you ever seen like our first solar field, I always saw a video of it, and I mean, there's a lot that goes into it that makes it
And I know the technology has gotten better, but I still think it's pretty risky. But that's just, I think we'd be better off with the safer route than the GRDA.
All right. Any other questions or comments before we close the work session?
Are liking the idea of the property that's west of the Public Works building. The one developer we talked to today, I do not believe would build there. Was that my understanding, Glenn, that they said that they would not be interested in building there? The second company we talked to years ago said that they did not recommend that spot. And I know that's your guys'
I mean,
choice property, but I
not
want you to
necessarily
know
my
that.
choice. I just like the idea of city-owned property, using that first.
Sure.
And that includes the rooftops that we currently have. And, you know, if we can look around and see what other properties, I mean, that's where, you know, having a detailed sheet of what properties the city currently does have that we aren't utilizing would come into play there to, you know, to take a look at all possibilities where it doesn't come into land acquisition.
I mean, we haven't mentioned the soccer fields up by the cemetery. We haven't mentioned the land next to the community garden. Prairie City Cemetery has some section of land over there, I think, that we talked about using. I mean, there's other options.
Yeah, and all I'm saying is I think we need to look at all those other options before.
I agree.
Okay. I just wanted to mention that was the information we got both today and a few
Yeah, we
years
just
ago.
talked about that today. We looked at that site and they said they would not recommend. Yeah, and Evergy previously had said that would not be a good site.
Any other questions or comments?
Can we get these PowerPoints emailed to us?
The what?
PowerPoints you went
Oh,
through today?
all that, yeah, it's like 9 different things there. It's not,
Yeah.
I think it's
what we'll eventually do is link those all into like a PDF, except for if you want the spreadsheet where you can change the numbers in there. We can provide that for you. So you can go in there and, you know, change it the way you think might go. The rest of it we can string together as a PDF, so you can have that as one document. So if you lose it, well, we'll get you another one. But anyway, so have it all in one handy place. So I didn't have time to do that today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Oh,
didn't look
that's
in there.
true.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll make it a little cleaner though to get into there. So, all right, it's a good point.
And this, I do intend to put the GRDA contract on the agenda from here on out, essentially until we make a
Yep,
decision.
need to make that decision.
And when do we have to make that decision?
They'd like it by the end of March.
Yeah, so we got one more
got a
meeting
little-
in
I mean, we
February,
can-
2 more in March.
Three
so,
three meetings.
yeah, so crunch time.
I don't know if I'm any closer to a decision on. I mean, there's more information I'd like to see. I mean, you know, what's the day ahead market for Ben?
Yep.
You know, we're talking about risk, but we really aren't even talking about real numbers on really what that risk was. I mean, in our mind, it's risky. And, you know, I think we also have to keep in mind, then how much solar do we need if we go 2 megawatts versus 1.5?
That's right.
Don't have a good feel for that either.
That's my biggest
And
concern.
then what's the potential cost savings when you do that mix of more solar and then the two different, if we're just talking about 1.5 to 2, you gotta look at the, you know, the cost analysis on, because what it comes down to, and, you know, I love hearing about no risk, but as was indicated tonight, no risk means more cost. And, you know, we all know one of the biggest concerns we get from the citizens is the cost. And so you probably can't have both. So can you take some smart risk and potentially get lower cost? And that's why I think we're looking at solar, that at some point when that solar bond's paid off, the cost drops dramatically. I mean, I think it was good discussion, some good information. I think the land, you know, choices have been narrowed down to, you know, if we only need 1 megawatts, we could probably put it on the west of the power plant. It's probably got enough to fit that, but if we need more, we're gonna have to buy land if the city lakes off the.
Well, I'd like to know how much our buildings would hold between
Yeah,
those
find
two.
that out.
Because that,
Yeah,
and that
fairly easy, I think, to do that.
Yeah. I mean, that's all good information to have when we're trying to make this decision.
And the
Yeah,
cost
some of
up
those
front for solar would be more, wouldn't it?
We get up to 60% tax credits. So
Didn't we say when I was here just listening before I was on here that it's more expensive though for the first amount of years until it drops
So we need to
off.
look at potentially, depends on how much
the more solar
if
you have.
if you had to buy land versus not buy land, all that comes in.
Well, and also the more
Lot of
megawatts you
factors.
go able to go up, the cheaper it gets, and it dips first 5 years
And if you buy
below
a
what you would
battery.
have for GRDA.
But that's exactly what we need to see.
Right.
Or, you know, if we're getting a contract, if GRDA is 5.5, you know, historically, you know, what would solar be? And again, you can't really compare the two because one's base power and the other's not. But during the peak times, you can compare them, right?
Right.
And so, if we knew what that cost per kilowatt hour is, then it's like, okay, I'm willing to pay 1/10 of a cent more, you know, for a period of time because when it drops off, I'm gonna recover that in like 2 years. But if we saw those numbers, we could have that conversation. But without that, we're all in our minds spinning our own numbers, just coming up with different answers.
Well, I think to see the battery cost infiltrated in that somehow, because that is part of the solar
again,
system.
Right, that'll be all kind of a little bit of speculation there, but I think you can do that. I mean, because we'll know, we know exactly what the batteries would cost, and then the avoided costs, and so you have to put in there's what you're paying per megawatt or kilowatt hour. Then
I think just because if you don't do any solar, you don't have the battery cost. So if you do solar, you have the battery cost or potentially battery cost.
Not necessarily, yeah.
Well, no, but potentially. I mean,
Yeah.
if you do the batteries with the solar, you have that cost. So we have to see that
Sure.
associated with that.
well, what we're showing on that one spreadsheet is that no matter how you do it, how many megawatts you go on the solar. 30% ITC, 40%, I don't even show you the 60%, it's still below the GRDA number.
Right.
No matter how you do that.
Right.
Even when you throw into land acquisition, it still does that. So it's still below that.
Right.
Okay.
Those assumptions. Now with the battery, you'll bring it down even lower. So, but you're right, it's not a base load piece, but that's the market, and that's what Jeff is going to show us next is
Yeah.
what that, go back 5 years, 10 years.
What's it been? And
What has that market been, and what they're doing the offset is saying here's where we're projecting the market to be in the next
Yep.
5, 10 years,
Yeah.
whatever. So they're showing that offset there.
it'd be nice to.
So I just like GRDA is a baseload power, whatever. It's not it's not at a fixed cost. So we're talking about risk. It still has PCA in there. You still have that potential for it. When the gas goes up again, it will be passed along. So it's not like the Pratt project, which they said 5 cents for the next 30 years. That's not what GRDA is. Even with their hedging in there, they still have a PCA.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like to take risks, so I would like to do the GRDA at least 1.5, preferably 2.
And with the solar, with the batteries, going back to them, even though they're under warranty, say some of them go bad, how quick is the turnaround to get new ones? Because then we'd be down. And then then we just have to buy off the open market if our batteries went down.
Typically to get a new set in here for what we're doing, if they were all out, it'd be like 30 to 60 days.
So then we'd be buying off the open market for 30 to 60 days, which could be,
But you're only talking about one
Yeah, I mean,
1 hour
it's-
throughout the day that those batteries are
that's
actually
Right.
yeah.
deterring.
I'm not gonna say that's critical, but that's like having an engine down at the plant.
Okay.
I think we look at it. I mean, it'd be easy to look at it two ways: solar and solar plus battery, because the battery's only going to be 1 megawatt hour, right? So
1 hour.
or one hour,
Well,
1 hour and 4 megawatts.
1 hour at 4 megawatts.
megawatt hours.
So, but it'd be easy to look at. I mean, that's just an add-on, right? And it's going to have its own ROI.
Right,
The batteries are, so we can look at the solar
right.
without the batteries, and then here's what the batteries would do for you.
That's that right there. That's solar without batteries.
That's okay.
Yeah, that doesn't include any of that. So,
We just add them-
complicate my life by action.
I got you.
To merge those together. I did them
I
separately.
think you just add it on, right? It's just an add-on.
Yeah, I believe you can do that.
Yeah, it's a cost and a savings, or, cost and expense.
Right,
And then what would the potential savings be
right.
for what period of time?
Yep.
So I think it'd just be another column to the right.
Yeah, and I can actually even throw in the 60% ITC to
Yeah.
get that cost. Because I actually was uploading the information today. I didn't have all of it, so I got to go back in there.
What's your confidence level we'd be able to hit 60?
Man, that's really hard to say because in the past, almost everybody who's applied for it and met their criteria got it. But how many people know about it now are going to rush in there?
Right.
That's why we wanted to get so-called first in line before
Right.
the 14th.
Right.
So I wouldn't even try to guess. I've never done it before, so I didn't even know that
We need to-
program was out there.
We need to base it on
Yeah,
worst case scenario.
yeah, 30 or 40. Yeah, that's why I was really hesitant to even show that as a comparison.
It really does need repeating. Before we close out, I do want to say and remind everyone again, GRDA has a PCA that they are passing to us in addition to that contract. That contract is not as safe as it feels. The open market, it doesn't have the hedge power that they do to where they can, 3-4 years ahead and hedge the price on natural gas, but they're still passing the cost of market value onto us. It's still happening. So just
Yeah, so
food for
that
thought.
versus the day ahead market, and we'll find out what that's been.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll close the work session. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Ooh. Hour and 15 minutes.